Okay, so next we're going to be using the MAPS package. It works slightly different than our natural Earth, and it has its own set of advantages and disadvantages. One advantage of using the MAPS package is it gives you a lot more built-in options for maps. So it will give you the world and all of the countries, just like our natural Earth does. But it also has some really detailed maps for France, Italy, New Zealand, the United States, and in particular for the United States, they've got the US with all of the state boundaries, and they've also got the US with all of the county boundaries. So that can be pretty useful. The way that we call the data is using this map data. So you can call world, right? Or you could also call France or Italy or state or county, depending on the data that you want. And then rather than using the GeomeSF that was before in the old data set, we're gonna have to use GeomePolygon. And that's just because of the way the data is formatted. Let me show you. So if I run this, right, we end up with world map as the data set. And so let's look at that. So the way that this data is formatted is slightly different. Essentially, this is our first country, it's Aruba, okay? And Aruba is sort of defined by these 10 different points, right? And then we're going to group all of those points together, okay? So there's no longer this list geome column. It looks sort of like this, and it's just a different way of formatting the exact same information. But when we plot it, we have to use GeomePolygon rather than GeomeSF. In our aesthetics, we need to say that we want to group them together. And I think I do an example later to sort of show you why, but essentially we want all the points in Aruba to be grouped together and all the points for Afghanistan to be grouped together. So let's just run this so you can sort of see. And essentially we get a map of the world, all the countries, just the way that we did before. If that's what you wanted, it really makes no difference whether you use the map package or the R Natural Earth package. They're gonna kind of give you the same thing. Okay. One thing I should point out is when you're doing this, you may wanna specify the latitude and the longitude. If I don't, it kind of gets confused, right? So if we're doing it this way, we should probably set it up that way so that it knows. Whoa, did I flip them? Oh, I flipped them. Isn't that funny? Longitude has to go first. That's the X coordinate, and that's the Y coordinate. Yeah, the one reason that I less often the maps data, I think it's much easier to make it look kind of wonky. You have to know what you're doing and be a little bit more particular about it. But it allows you more options for customization, which is good. Okay, we can subset particular countries or counties. So for example, you can pull out from the map data and use world, and then pull out the USA region. Okay, so that would give us some USA data. Okay, and we can plot that. So again, this is going to set up the basic setup with the latitude and the longitude, and then we've got GeomePolygon. That's our new command we have to use, right, rather than GeomeSF for this particular data set from the maps package. I'm going to fill it my normal way. I'm going to color the outline the normal way. And again, I have to add this aesthetics group command. So let me just run it so we can see. A couple of pieces. I want to talk about this AES group is equal to group because that's kind of a new piece. And I want to talk about this coord fixed thing because both of those are really important and there's something special that we have to sort of keep in mind when we're using this maps package. So for example, okay, I think I ran this. Here in this case, I didn't include the AES group is equal to group command. So it doesn't know to group certain countries' values together, right? If I run this, it's gonna look super weird. See, it doesn't know what to connect to what, things get weird. So if you end up with a graph that kind of looks wonky like this, that's probably what's missing, okay? So make sure to add in the AES group is equal to group command. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was this coord fix ratio is equal to 1 piece, okay? It's super important for being able to keep the aspect ratio. So that means that, you know, we want sort of latitude and longitude to not be stretched or squished, right? We want them to sort of be consistent compared to the other, okay? If we don't keep the aspect ratios fixed, you're gonna end up with a really stretched out picture, a squished picture in some direction. And on the US, it's not that bad if you didn't include it. So maybe let me go up so you can see it. If I take this out for the US, it's not going to change it that much because the US is a fine shape where it's not that noticeable. But in certain countries, especially ones that are long and skinny or have sort of unique shapes, things are going to get really ugly. So I think I plotted Italy so you could sort of see an example. So again, to get the Italy data, I'm going into the world map, world data, and I'm pulling out the Italy region. Okay. And if I don't maintain the aspect ratio, so in this case, I didn't include that coord fixed command into here. When I did that, it's going to look like this. So Italy looks kind of a little bit like squishied in the Y direction, right? Maybe it doesn't look the way it would normally look on Google Maps or on most projections that we're used to seeing of Italy. Whereas if we do keep that command and keep the ratio fixed, we end up with this. And so this is the standard longitude and latitude projection of Italy, which maybe is a little bit more authentic to what we're used to seeing. Again, there might be other projections that different people might prefer for Italy, and you can play with those if you want. But if we're talking about, you know, sort of the standard latitude longitude projection, which should be pretty okay for this country that's relatively near the equator, you know, it's not up near either of the poles. I don't think it's too bad, but it's certainly much better than this stretched out squishy version. So in this maps data, those are two really important commands to pay attention to, that you're grouping the groups the way they need to be grouped, and that we're maintaining that aspect ratio.